Marshall Goldsmith, welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast. This has been a long time coming. My heart's beating through my chest. I am so honored and excited to pick your brain today. You're somebody I've looked up to for a long time, and it's just so surreal that we're be able to have this conversation today. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I enjoyed having a chance to talk with you. So you seem like a wonderful guy and headed for an even better future.
And that means so much coming from you. Awesome. Well, I want to get into a lot of things today. I consider you the wisest person that I've ever come into contact with. So I'm just here to listen, learn, and gain a little bit of wisdom. I think a great place to start is starting about your brand new book, which is incredible. I've been through it once and I'm through it another half time here. It's called The Earned Life: Lose Regret, Choose Fulfillment. I would love to set the table first for the listeners that haven't yet read the book. Marshall, what is an earned life? And also, why is it the polar opposite of regret?
Well, to start with, I'm going to read the definition. We're living an earned life when the choices, risks, and effort we make in each moment align with an overarching purpose in our lives, regardless of the original outcome. Now, the interesting part of that phrase is regardless of the original outcome, because we tend to be fixated on outcomes and we get our egos attached to outcomes. And I spend a lot of time talking in the book about why that's a mistake. Why, and it's very counterintuitive. The book is very not Western. If you've read the books, it's very not Western in its orientation. And also the polar opposite of regret. Well, fulfillment is the polar opposite of regret. And every day we wake up and start life over. So a big part of the book is it's a new me. Every time I take a breath, it's a new me. And so I'm a philosophical Buddhist. So a lot of the book is based on Buddhist philosophy. Every time I take a breath, it's a new me. And we have a myth in the West that everything will be okay when I get the money, status, BMW, condominium, it's all going to be great then. Well, unfortunately, there's only one book that always has the same ending, and they lived happily ever after. That is called a fairy tale. That's not the real world. In the real world, we're starting over, and then we start over, and then we start over, and we start over, and life is constant change.
How can my listeners live an earned life? What are the first steps? Where do we kind of start this conversation?
Well, very good question. I would say look at three key variables. What leads to a great life anyway? Well, what are the factors that lead to any kind of great life? Number one is take care of yourself. Now, you're very big on your health. I think it's very important. Your health is very, very important. If you don't have your health, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter too much. Number two is all you need is a middle class or kind of a middle class up income. After that, there's almost no correlation between money and happiness. You think there is. Statistically, there really isn't. Rich people are neither happier nor less happy. It's kind of not a variable. So you need enough kind of middle class income. You need to take care of your health and have great relationships with people you love. Well, the book is not really about any of those three. The book is about the other three factors. One is you need a higher level of aspiration in life. You need an answer to that great question, why am I doing this? Everyone works hard. Okay, why? Why am I doing this? That's your aspiration. And your aspiration doesn't have a finish line. It's bigger than that. Second is our ambitions, and those are related to our achievements in life. And our achievements do have a finish line. They have a finite time. We want to achieve goals. And to have a great life, it's very important. These goals are connected to your higher aspiration. And then finally, our actions, our day-to-day actions, hopefully will be aligned with our achievements and our aspirations. And that's what am I doing now? So our actions, that's immediate now. Our ambition has a timeline. Our aspiration, no timeline. Our action is we want to enjoy the process of life and be engaged in the process of life. Our ambitions are we want to achieve something that's worthwhile and valuable. And then our aspirations are the answer to the question, why am I doing this in the first place? Now, your listeners, I'll make a prediction, and my clients probably have one common characteristic. My coaching clients are CEOs or could be CEOs of fantastic organizations, and it's a whole laundry list. And if you read the book, I'm very proud of those endorsements in the book. Those are very important people. Very important people who said very kind things, by the way. So I'm very, very proud of those. Well, the people I coach, and my guess is also the people listening to us right now, let me make a prediction. Their biggest problem is probably not being overfixated on the idea of aspiration. Some people are lost in the clouds, kind of very good philosophical stuff, got big ideas, but they don't achieve much, and they may or may not even enjoy the process of life. Many human service leaders fall into this trap. They love humanity. They just hate human beings. So, and they're not phonies. They actually do love humanity, and they actually can't stand real people. That is shockingly common. So one potential problem is being lost in aspiration. I doubt the listeners have the problem. The second, most people do have, probably not your listeners, is the action phase. Your day-to-day activities. Our ancestors were poor people. They didn't have any money. They were poor. They lived day-to-day lives. They just did what was in front of them. Most people today do that. They play the video game. They watch the TV. They live day-to-day lives. They go to work. They do what they're told. Next day, they do it again. They're kind of just stuck in that immediate phase. The people listening to us right now, my guess is, have neither one of those problems. The problem they would have is being addicted to achievement and over-focused on results and defining their value as people based on what they achieve. This is a big mistake, and I'm going to explain why for two reasons. Reason number one is you do not have total control over what you achieve. Neither you nor I invented COVID. Number two is what happens after you achieve these results? How much long-term happiness and satisfaction in life does this bring? To give an example, one of the kind people who endorsed my book is a client of mine, Albert Berla. Albert, CEO of Pfizer. So I called Albert, a year or so ago. Albert, how's it going? Oh, great. Yeah. I said, Albert, thank you. That vaccine thing, very good. He said, very proud of that. Saved 1 billion lives. So good job. Employee engagement through the roof. Company stock, all-time high. Pride in the company, all-time high. He didn't say this. He was also CEO of the year. Yay. So I said, Albert, what's your problem? He said, I have a huge problem next year. Next year. You see, if his value as a human being is based on he has to achieve more than last year, he can cash it in. He will never achieve more than last year. And by the way, you think the people that bought that Pfizer stock at this price care what he did last year? Nope. They do not care at all. Next year. Michael Phelps, you're an athlete, 25 gold medals. What do you think about doing after number 25? Kill himself. Why? His value as a human was based on achievement, results. Never put your value as a human being based on that. It's a game you cannot ever win. The Buddhist term for this is the hungry ghost. You're always eating, you're never full. You're always eating and you're never full. One of the great people in our group, and the book was inspired by what happened over COVID. Over COVID, I had the privilege with my friend Mark Thompson of spending 600 hours with 60 amazing people. And every week they talked about their lives. Week after week after week after week. And the people's names, it's not a secret, they're all in the book. Pau Gasol, the famous basketball player, was one of the group. Curtis Martin, National Football League Hall of Fame, was in the group. Telly Leung, who played Aladdin on Broadway. Michelle Seitz, CEO of Russell Investments. We had the head of the Olympic Committee, the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Bank, on and on and on. Amazing people. Every week they talked about their lives. And one of the guys in the group is named Safi Bakal. Safi is a brilliant guy, a scientist. He talks like a scientist. And he said, I finally realized something from Curtis Martin, the football guy. Now, Curtis has achieved a lot and he's happy. And he said, some of the people in our group have achieved a lot and they're not happy. He said, I finally realized happiness and achievement are independent variables. Be happy to be happy and achieve to achieve. Never believe achievement's going to make you happy. They're independent. Both are important. They're independent variables. I said, Safi, I'm glad you realized this. Why? Number one, you already have a PhD from Stanford. Number two, you've written a New York Times book called Loonshots that is a bestseller. Number three, you started successfully 4 businesses and made $1 zillion. And number four, you consulted to presidents. Yeah, really, if that's not enough achievement to make you happy, do you really think a little bit more is going to matter? You're right. It never ends. If he's got to achieve more, how much he got to achieve here? At a certain level, it becomes insane, right? How much more do you have to achieve? And he said, you're right. Now, one final point before we go back into questions is, in addiction to achievement, be careful for one thing. You're an athlete, so you're very familiar with the concept of delayed gratification. Now, that's why you're a good athlete. One thing you have to be careful for is that. Careful of delayed gratification. Here's why. Fascinating research that's done, and this is my favorite part of the book, it's called Eat the Marshmallow. Fascinating research done at Stanford where they take kids and give a kid a marshmallow. Say, kid, if you eat one, you get one. But if you wait, 2 for you. Now, allegedly, they did longitudinal research, and the kids that waited got 2, ended up being, famous people and wonderful. The kids that ate 1 are all drug addicts. So, it's kind of a little exaggerated, but not much. But the message is pretty clear. Delayed gratification is good. Delayed gratification is good. Work out more. Go on the diet. Good, good, good. Almost every self-help book, delayed gratification is good. Here's how you can get better at delayed gratification. One problem with the little study. They didn't take the kid that had 2 marshmallows and say, kid, wait a minute. Wait. 3. Wait some more. 4, 5, 10, 100, 1,000. And where does the story end? An old man waiting to die, sitting in a room surrounded by thousands of uneaten marshmallows. Sometimes you need to eat the marshmallow. And the point is, if all you do in life is delayed gratification, you know what you get a whole lot of? Delay. You know what you don't get much of? Gratification.
So cool. I have 7 tactical skills, Marshall, for an elevated mindset. And pillar or skill number 4 is process over outcome, or process over prize. So to hear you say it in a leadership role is so cool. And I'd love to keep diving further. Something that's unique about me is when I get a new book, I like to go back to the end of the book and read the last sentence just for fun. I've always done it since I was a kid. And I think the last sentence actually is really fitting for what we're talking about right now. The last sentence of your book says this: in the end, an earned life doesn't include a trophy ceremony or a permit to an extended victory lap. The
Right.
reward of living an earned life is being engaged in the process of constantly earning such a life. Powerful statement. Talk to me about process over outcome a little bit more.
Well, and you're an athlete. So let's talk about that. One of the great coaches of college, who's the greatest coach in the history of college basketball? Not a great argument. John Wooden,
John Wooden.
UCLA, 10, 11 national championships, right? He never focused on winning. He never focused on winning. You know what he said? If you do your best and win, be proud. If you do your best and lose, you have nothing to be proud of. Oh, excuse me. If you do your best and lose, still be proud. On the other hand, if you don't do your best and win, you have nothing to be proud of. He said, the Pope, do your best. Well, at a very deep point, Lou Saban, coach of Alabama, wins the national championship. What does he say? Well, this is annoying. I have to go to interviews and stuff. What does he focus on? The process. The process. So back to what you're doing, I really love that, because everyone wants to be in shape, the outcome. Well, unfortunately, there's a minor thing because you have to work out all the time, the process. And you can get to the outcome, you got to have the process. You got to have the process. And in life, we kind of all existentially have exactly the same final result here. we're all going to be that old man, right? Well, if you just focus on the outcome, you're never going to get there. It just goes on and on.
Absolutely.
Also, you're an athlete. Curtis Martin is in our group, and he does a lot of work with ex-athletes. And a lot of them are complete and total disasters. Ex-NFL players, 70% bankrupt, NBA depressed. And how they lose a lot of their money? I never knew this. They give it away. They give it away. You know why? They're trying to buy love.
Mm,
The
interesting.
Beatles have a saying for that one. Can't buy me love. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth. If your value is that money, you got a problem.
Great point. I think another piece of the process over outcome is probably my favorite thing that you've taught me, and I've kind of changed it a little bit to the success checklist. And you have somebody that calls you every single day, and I've used this with my kids in a little bit of a different facet. So where there's an app called Habit Share. Have you heard of Habit Share? It's a pretty simple app.
Yeah.
I can add friends or add athletes on Habit Share, and they create their anywhere from 1 to 25 things they want to do in a day. When they do it, it clicks green, I'm notified, and it keeps them on track on what we're talking about, the process. And there's some internal award there of getting a streak. Every time you add another one, it's plus 59, et cetera, et cetera. I have a female right now. One of her habits is making her bed every day, just starting a day with a win. And for a high school kid, you might scoff at that and say, what's the big deal? She's taken complete ownership of this, Marshall. And for 59 days in a row, she's made her bed. Right now, she's on vacation with her family in Mexico, still making her bed. So there's a lot of just really cool stuff that comes along with the success checklist. And you do it as well. And you're the first one I've seen to do it. Talk to me about the success checklist because I think it really goes inside the process of the outcome.
Well, I'm now going to describe something that is very parallel to what you're doing. So I think what you're doing is great. And even before I describe it, let me talk about why people should do it and that they don't.
Please do.
Okay. Now, a great example of this is when you go in for a surgery in a hospital, the nurse has a checklist and they go through this with the surgeon. And if the nurse goes through the checklist with the surgeon, the odds on unneeded infection plummet and the death rate's cut by 2/3. By the way, this is not a theory. This is a well-documented statistical fact. The huge majority of hospitals around the world do not let the nurse ask the question from the checklist. Why? Ego. Ego. The doctor is too proud to say they need the checklist. Too much ego. According to Dr. Atul Gawande, he wrote a book about this called The Checklist Manifesto. He said more people in the United States alone have died because of the egos of surgeons who won't use a checklist than died in the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, and the Iraqi War combined. That's a negative example. Now, for the positive example, for 9 years, I trained animals in the U.S. Navy. Now, I don't charge them any money because their billing bureaucracy is such a pain in the butt. So I don't charge them money. I do it for free, but they give me little treats, right? So a couple of years ago, my treat was day in a nuclear submarine. Me and 8 other old men got to spend a whole day in a nuclear submarine, diving under the waters, pretending torpedo things. Oh, so much fun. A couple of years later, I got a better treat. Where did I get to go? Highway to the danger zone. Have you seen the movie called Top Gun?
Absolutely.
I got to fly 95 minutes on a U.S. Navy Top Gun fighter jet. 6 Gs, oxygen, flying upside down. It was horrifying. Pilot says, let's go up. 6 Gs. I'm going, up is bad. Up is incredibly bad. Bad. Up bad. Then they stall the plane up. I realized there's actually something much worse than up. Down. 500 miles an hour straight down. Well, when we landed, and I'm very proud to say I didn't throw up. I did not throw up. When we landed, I asked my pilot, Admiral Mark Guanini, head of Naval Aviation Training, I said, Admiral Mark, a doctor don't like this checklist thing because their ego's too big. I said, on the other hand, nobody's got a bigger ego than U.S. Navy Top Gun fighter jet pilot who becomes an admiral. No offense, but you got the biggest ego in the world. How come you don't care the kid asks you the questions from a checklist? What's the difference? He said, Marshall, there is a huge difference. If the operation crashes, you die. Plane crashes, I die. Well, I'm a big believer in what you're doing. And don't be so egotistical. You think you're better than this because you aren't. I've been doing this every day for 25 years. Now, before I begin with the process, let me tell you, this is hard to do. It's not easy to do. I've had someone call me every day for almost 25 years to make sure I do this. Somebody says, why do you have to have someone call you? Don't you know the theory about how to change your behavior? I wrote the theory. That's why I have someone call me. Why? My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I got ranked #1 leadership thinker and coach in the whole world. I have to have someone call me every day to help me. Why? I am too cowardly and too undisciplined to do any of this stuff by myself. I need help. And you know what? It's okay. We all need help. Who are we kidding here? We all need help. How many of the top 10 tennis players have a coach? 10? Well, they're not losers. They're smart. Well, back to the questions. Now, I'm going to share this process with your listeners. It takes maybe 3 minutes a day. Will help you get better in almost anything. Some are skeptical. 3 minutes a day, help me get better in anything. Too good to be true. Impossible. Half the people quit in 2 weeks. And they don't quit because it does not work. They quit because it does work. This is hard to do. Anyone says it's easy to do, they've never done it before. It's hard to do. My clients aren't idiots. They'll all tell you it's hard to do. Well, get out a checklist. On one column, write down a series of questions that represent what's most important in your life. Friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, health, business, whatever you want, right? Each question has to be answered with a yes, a no, or a number. Yes is recorded as a 1, no is a 0 or a number. Every day, fill out the little questionnaire. At the end of the week, you get a report card. So I'm going to warn your listeners in advance. The report card at the end of the week might not be quite as beautiful as the corporate values plaque you see stuck up on a wall. So I've been doing this 25 years. You know what you very quickly learn? Life is incredibly easy to talk. And life is incredibly difficult to do. Well, you do this every day. You're not looking at those talk values, those beautiful talk values. Start looking at those live values. Not so pretty. Not so pretty. It's not easy to do. Now I'm going to share some of my questions. If anyone would like all of my questions, send me an email. Just write email, send daily questions, and I'll send you an article about the process, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. Send me an email, send you a response on it. One of my questions every day is, how many times did you try to prove you were right when it was not worth it? I don't see too many zeros on my scorecard. I heard that old professor not to be right all the time. How many angry or destructive comments did you make about people yesterday? You don't see enough zeros on that either. We don't want other people stabbing us in the back. Why are we stabbing other people in the back? How many steps did you take? I'm pretty good at that one. How many push-ups? How many sit-ups? How much do you weigh? I'm pretty good at that one. Every day, measure how many minutes did you write? All those books didn't write themselves. It takes time. Now, my friend Jim Moore would tell you this saved his life. One of his daily questions is, currently updated on your physical exam. First 90 days he did this, he said no every day. After 90 days, he said, this is ridiculous. I got to get the exam or quit asking the question. It's embarrassing. I'm failing the test every day, and I wrote the question. He got the exam. Doctor said, you have cancer. Now, it was many years ago. He's going to be fine. I just talked to him yesterday. You know what the doctor said? He knew he should have done this. He was 65 years old. The doctor said, if you'd waited 7 more months, you would have been dead. Well, you hold a mirror in your face every day, as you've learned. It's hard to hide. We quit deluding ourselves. A lot of people say they walk 10,000 steps a day. Right. I'm sure they don't. Measure it every day. Write it down every day. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not quite so much as you think. It is very hard to do this stuff, as you know as well as I do, because you've been doing the same thing with people in a different format, but the same idea.
Seems to be just a gap between most people know what they have to do or they should do, Marshall, but there's just a gap between knowing and doing. And I think that's what the success checklist could bring to some people. I would love to hear just a couple. I have your 6 questions written down here. We don't have to go through each one perhaps, but could we go through some of the other ones about did I do my best to, and why it's important to say, did I do my best?
Look, we got plenty of time. Fire away.
So the first one is, well, first, I think it's important to understand why you put the questions of did I do my best? Why did you put it that way first?
Well, I learned this from my daughter, Kelly. Now, I'm very proud of my daughter, Kelly. She's a graduate of Duke University. She was on the American TV show Survivor Africa. So if you saw the third season of Survivor, she was a little survivor. After being on Survivor, she worked in LA for 2 years for Mark Burnett. She did casting for Survivor, The Amazing Race, went back to college, got 2 master's degrees and a PhD from Yale. And now she's a endowed chair, full professor, and chairman of the marketing department of Vanderbilt. So very proud father. So Kelly and I are often talking about stuff, and she knows more about research and questions than I do. And she said, Dad, all these questions that they ask on employee engagement surveys are what I call passive questions. Do you have clear goals? Do you have meaningful work? Do you have a friend at work? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you ask a person a passive question and they say no, they blame the environment. So if I ask you, were you happy yesterday? No. Well, why not? It was hot. It was cold. Somebody said something. Them. If you ask a different question that begins with, did I do my best to, you have to take responsibility. So if I say, did you do your best to be happy, no matter what the circumstances, you can't blame someone else. That's about you. So we came up with 6 questions. And if your listeners do nothing based on this interaction, but ask themselves these questions every day, they're going to have better lives. Question number 1, every day, did I do my best to set clear goals? So every day, just have the discipline to sit there and set a goal for the day. Number 2, did I do my best to make progress toward achieving my goals every day? And often we set the goals and just get lost in emails, voicemails, phone calls, day's gone. Number 3, did I do my best to find meaning? So rather than waiting for the rest of the world to give us a meaningful life, am I trying to create a meaningful life for myself? Number 4, did I do my best to be happy? Rather than saying, did everyone make me happy? Did I do my best to make myself happy? Now, in my book, Triggers, I talk about 3 people I've coached, all medical doctors. Dr. Jim Kim, simultaneous MD and PhD with honors from Harvard in anthropology in 5 years. Normal human, PhD in anthropology from Harvard is 8 years. We got one in 5 years, he got a medical degree at the same time. He went on to be head of Partners in Health, president of Dartmouth College, and then president of the World Bank. Dr. Raj Shah, head of the United States Agency for International Development at age 37, reported to Hillary Clinton, and now he's head of the Rockefeller Foundation. And Dr. John Noseworthy, place you're familiar with, the Mayo Clinic, CEO of the Mayo Clinic. All 3 of these people ask the same question. On an average day, how would you score on, did I do my best to be happy? All 3 had the same answer. Never dawned on me to try to be happy.
Wow.
It's too busy achieving things.
Wow.
They're all medical doctors. I said, did it dawn on you you're going to die? Did they cover that in medical school, that death thing? You say, oh, yeah, they brought that up, death. Yeah. So do you think it's a silly question? I said, no. It's a very important question I just forgot to ask. Average person, 1 to 10 scale, did I do my best to be happy? Average day, 5.5 out of 10. You know what I teach people? Raise the score. Raise that score. We forget to be happy. We forget to try to be happy. Next one, did I do my best to build positive relationships? For instance, did I have a friend at work? Was I the friend? And then finally, did I do my best to be fully engaged, present in life? Rather than saying, did the company engage me? Did I do my best to engage myself? Well, our research on this is pretty compelling. I talk about it in the book from thousands of people. If you just do this every day, 34% of the people say you get better at everything. And in our research, we had 34 get better at everything, 67 got better at 4 out of 6, 91 got better at 1, and almost nobody gets worse. Why? Every day they get you to focus on, or me to focus on, the one thing that we have total control over. What's that? Did I do my best?
I love it. I love the idea of having ownership in that, the passive versus active, because sometimes you got to go out and create it for yourself rather than if you were to ask, did you find happiness? Well, no, this person, they made me not happy. It's taking ownership away from your own life. And I see this also, Marshall, as almost a little bit of like a GPS system. We know where we want to go at the end of
Right.
life. Most of us kind of know the person we want to become. But how do we get there? What's the directions? What's the roadmap? And I think the success checklist and these 6 questions are the roadmap to get you there.
Well, if you look at that other checklist, what are variables associated with success? One is motivation. But as you know, motivation doesn't mean I want to be in shape. Am I motivated to do what's required to be in shape?
Different.
And the second thing is ability. Everybody does not have inherent ability to do everything, and it either needs to be trained or sometimes you just don't have the potential. Very few 5 foot tall people are going to be pro basketball players, right? Then the next thing is you got motivation, ability, understanding. Do you know what to do and how to do it? Then are you confident? Do you believe in yourself? So if you've got motivation, ability, understanding, confidence, those are all personal variables. Then the external variables are, number one is support. For example, I need support to do stuff. I need somebody to call me every day. Well, we all need help. We all need support. What help and support do you need? And then finally, an important question is there a market for this? Because what happens is, I mean, I live in Nashville. Pretty much, what percent of the waitresses in Nashville are going to be country music stars? Very high percentage in their minds. Tiny percentage are going to get there. Why? It's a tough market. And it doesn't matter how talented you are. It is a tough, tough, tough market. Hey, my daughter, after she graduated from Duke, went to LA. She was on Survivor, Letterman Show, cover of TV Guide, all that stuff. So she's going to be a movie star. She went to Hollywood for 2 years. Boom, she got her butt handed to her. You know, good lesson. She learned some humility. And she said, I have so much respect for those people. It is hard. Now, she has a PhD from Yale. He said, you get a PhD from Yale on Friday night, you go to party, go to party. You go to a party on Hollywood on Friday night, you work. Who's in the room, connections, relationships, it's all work. So there has to be a market, because if there's not a market for what you do, well, highly unlikely you're going to be a success. Now, one of the common, a lot of stupid phrases people have. One stupid phrase is if you follow your bliss, the money will come. Every waitress in Hollywood follows their bliss, right? And for most of them, no money is going to come. There is no money that's going to come. All the waitresses in Nashville, they're following their bliss. There's no money. Why? You got to have a market there. You can have all the bliss you want to. Somebody's got to write a check. And if there's nobody to write a check, it's not going to happen.
I think this dovetails really nicely into your 4 blocks of building discipline. So we're talking about creating habits and creating that earned life. And you have 4 blocks: compliance, accountability, follow-up, and measurement. I think discipline is a really attractive word, especially for my audience being in the physical fitness space. We're all striving to be more disciplined, Marshall. But there's 4 blocks. Can we go through those?
Well, let's go through one at a time.
Yeah, so the first one's compliance.
Compliance. Simple example. 30% of the people who have life-threatening illnesses do not take the medication as prescribed. Right? Well, if you don't have compliance, right, it doesn't matter what the prescription is. You can tell people this will help you. They actually have to do it. Okay, that's number one. What's the next one?
Accountability.
Accountability really helps. Now, I have someone call me every day. You have an accountability thing you're doing with your clients. I love accountability, because if we don't have accountability, we're only deluding ourselves, which is phenomenally easy to do. Phenomenally easy. What's number 3?
Follow-up.
Follow-up. Now, I've done another research study, which send me an email, I'll send it to you, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com, called Leadership as a Contact Sport. It's about people I coach. They all get feedback. They go to the same course. And I tell them, talk to people, follow up, involve your coworkers, and we're measuring, you get better. The ones that do it, shockingly, get better. Surprisingly, you'll understand this from a physical fitness point of view. The ones that don't do it, guess what? They don't get better. You can teach them how to work out, but guess what? They got to work out. Arnold Schwarzenegger said, nobody got muscles by watching me lift weights. Well, you actually got to keep doing all this work over and over and over again to get better. And what's the final one?
Measurement, which is what the success checklist is, right?
That measurement, that's all about every day. I measure things every day. How many steps did I take? How much do I weigh? Every day.
Compliance, accountability, follow-up, and measurement to get more discipline. Cool. One of my other favorite things recently that I watched from you was your documentary on Amazon. Such a cool way to get to know you, and it was so greatly filmed. And one of the overlying themes, Marshall, was 4 qualities of successful leaders. I'd like to talk about leadership a little bit. So the 4 qualities there were courage, humility, discipline, and adaptability. Maybe we could go through each of those and talk a little bit about what that means to you from a leadership level.
And if you want to get the documentary, it only costs, I think, $6 or $8.
Yeah.
Just go to Amazon and just put The Earned Life. because the documentary is called The Earned Life. Now let's go through each one of those. What's the first one?
Yeah, the first one's courage.
Courage. It takes a lot of courage to do this stuff. It takes courage to look in the mirror. It takes courage to face yourself every day. And it's hard. It's hard to do. If it were easy, all those famous names on the book would not have hired me. As you know, it's hard. Okay, what's the next one?
On top of that courage, one of your quotes that you say that I love is the achiever needs to win all the time. The leader, you need to learn to be the smartest smartest person in the room. Talk to me about, because I think there's some courage embedded in
Yeah,
that.
for the great achiever, it's all about me. They have to be smart. They have to prove they're right, whatever. For the great leader, it's about them. And it's very difficult to make this transition from being a great achiever to a great leader. And it takes some humility. That's the second variable of being able to say, it's not all about me. I don't have to be right. One of the great leaders I frequently quote is named Alan Mulally. Alan had the privilege of coaching him, was the CEO of Boeing Commercial Aircraft, goes to Ford. The stock is at $1.01, goes to $18.40. CEO of the year in the United States, 97% approval rating from every employee in a union company. Unheard of for a CEO, by the way. Unbelievable. The guy's a great leader and a great person. So Alan has a great thing he does. Somebody asks him a question at Ford. You know what he says? What's your suggestion, Alan? His comment is there anyone in the Ford Motor Company or someone who could answer that question better than me? If the answer is yes, why am I speaking? Well, the reality is he's smart. That's kind of being humble, but it's also being smart. If he talks, guess what they'll do? Sir, yes, sir. They'll run around and do this stuff, right? Well, I mean, one of the things one of my good coaching clients, JP Garnier, with CEO Glaxo, taught me, he said, my suggestions become orders. When you're a CEO, your suggestions become orders. I trained the admirals in the Navy for 9 years. What I teach them, the first thing, you get that star, admirals don't make suggestions, they give orders. Admiral says, how about this? You know what the response is? I it's done. That's it. That's it. It's an order. So it takes humility to admit you can improve. For the doctor, it takes humility to admit, hey, sometimes I forget to wash my hands. I forget to wash my hands sometimes. It's okay. You're human. You need a reminder. You need some humility. The other thing I've learned as a coach, I really can't help perfect people get better. Somebody's perfect, but nothing I can do to help them.
There's a common theme in your book too about some of the leaders that you've worked with, is that they're very open to feedback. My dad likes to say all the time, it's, as a leader, you need to be open to feedback without pushback. Tell me about a little bit about the leaders before we go into 3 and 4. How important is it to get feedback, and what's your advice to leaders that struggle with asking for feedback?
Well, the first thing is, this can be counterintuitive. All the feedback I give to leaders is confidential feedback. So I think it's very important for a leader to get confidential feedback. Look at the history of the human species. How about criticizing upper management? How's that worked out for our ancestors? Yeah, there was one word to describe our ancestors that did that over the centuries. You know what that word is? Dead. It really didn't work out well for them at all. No, criticizing the king, how'd that work out for you? Ink. No, it's such a good plan. So we have learned not to criticize upper management. That's why for leaders, I love confidential feedback. Then I don't recommend they ask everybody for feedback. Feed forward. In feed forward, you don't ask for feedback about the past, which is very threatening and makes people uncomfortable. You ask for ideas for the future. And you'll always get good ideas. People enjoy the process. You're going to learn 80% as much anyway. For example, you want to be a better listener. Rather than saying, give me feedback, when did I screw up? Which is awkward, embarrassing. You start talking, then I point out you were wrong, blah, blah, blah. Usually goes no place. I say, I want to be a great listener. Give me 2 or 3 ideas that really in the future, if I did these things, it helped me be a better listener. What would they be? You will always come up with ideas. I'm going to learn as much or more, and you don't feel awkward or embarrassed or uncomfortable. So I love the concept of feed forward. I've done this, by the way, with one person. I've done it with 50,000 people in a football stadium in St. Petersburg, Russia. 50,000 I did this, and they loved it. Well, you saw the video. You saw those people running around talking. Yeah, there were 50,000 people there. They loved it.
Wow. So cool. Next one, we talked about it a little bit, but maybe it looks different for a leader, but the third quality is discipline.
And discipline, as we've discussed that, you actually have to have the hard work, the discipline, and recognize this is a day-to-day effort. And what we don't think about, though, is something like happiness. Happiness is a discipline like anything else. You need to have the discipline to focus. Now, my friend, two of the greatest leaders I've ever coached, Al Mulally, I mentioned Frances Hesselbein, who just died at 107, an amazing woman who Peter Drucker said the greatest leader I met. I've never seen them be down, ever. Now, they're both human beings. They have personal problems, health problems, like any other human. You know what? Not when they go to work. It's showtime. I've never seen Frances complain. I never saw her complain in the 45 years I knew her. Never. She didn't complain. She never whined. She was incredibly tough and disciplined. She broke her hip. You know what the doctor said? Oh, well, you're 85 years old. You know, you're not going to die. Really good. A lot of people die. You're not going to die, but you're going to have a limp the rest of your life. You know what she said? No, I'm not. The doctor said, well, yeah, I know you don't want to, but it's okay. She goes, no, no, no limp for me. How'd she do that? She walked through excruciating pain day after day after day after day. She's a wonderful human being, but incredibly tough. Well, you need discipline. My friend Alan and Francis, every day I am up, I am positive, I'm in this role, I'm going to be a great role model. When Alan was at Ford, they faced phenomenal challenges. One day, one of his employees comes in and he's squeezing one of those stress ball things. She goes, thank God, you never act like you're under stress at all. I'm so happy to see you're just like the rest of us. He said, well, what do you mean? Well, she said, you're squeezing that ball. Oh, he said, yeah, I hurt my wrist playing tennis, and the doctor told me I'm supposed to squeeze the ball. By the way, how many times did I hear Francis get angry? 0. Yell at people? 0. Be unprofessional? 0. Be happy every day. Give you the extreme example. It's hard for me to talk about without crying. I just saw her recently before she died. And I'm thinking, well, she's dying. She's probably in a coma. Won't even know I'm there, but I'll pay my regrets or, just pay my regards. So the woman who was taking care of her, Sarah MacArthur, said, Frances, Marshall's here. Her eyes open. She spent 20 minutes talking to me. She smiled the entire time.
Wow.
She said things like, I really feel great. She can't eat. She can't move. She can't walk. And she's dying. I feel great. How much time was she spending worried about her? 0. It wasn't about her. It was about me. Well, that's discipline. How about whining? Not really.
Wow. It's incredible. Number 4, last one of 4 qualities of successful leaders, adaptability. I'm really learning to love this word, adaptability. Why is it so important?
Well, you need to be flexible and adaptable, and you need to be willing to change and realize, I think someone wrote a brilliant book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I forget.
I think I know that guy.
Yeah, that guy, brilliant book. Yeah, it sold 1.5 million copies. A very nice book, right? What got you here won't get you there. Just ranked in this Chief Executive Magazine survey of CEOs in America, top 10 book ever written. So I love that book. What got you here won't get you there. Well, you need to be adaptable. And you can't just sit there and say, I did this. I got to here. Therefore, I'm going to keep doing this and get to there. No, what's required to get there is different than what got you here.
Very cool. Love that book too, by the way. Another piece that I thought was really enlightening was empathy and credibility. I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've heard of Chris Voss before, former FBI hostage negotiator, wrote the book about tactical empathy and how empathy is such an important skill. And you really taught me how empathy can go 2 different ways. I hadn't even thought about this before. So if we could, I'd love to kind of go through, again, we're kind of doing these lists. It's kind of been fun here. If you want to go through each 4, I would love to. The first one is, the empathy of understanding. So why you feel the way you do. Why is that good and why is it also bad?
Well, okay. if you look at empathy, don't feel bad because you didn't see it as anything but positive. I didn't see it as anything but positive until I was 70 years old.
Okay.
I finally started studying this and realized empathy does have an incredibly positive side, and empathy can have a very negative and dark side. So let's talk about the four types of empathy in each one. First is called the empathy of understanding. Now, that means I really can know where you're coming from. That's more of an understanding empathy, cognitive empathy. Well, I'm very good at that. I mean, I can see things in people they can't see in themselves. So I'm very well trained in that. I have years of experience in that. That can be very useful as a coach, as someone who's training people, helping people. On the other hand, propagandists are excellent at the empathy of understanding. They know what motivates people. Advertisers. My friend is Martin Lindstrom, world's expert on branding. He says 85% of what we buy, we have no idea why we're buying it. We've been manipulated by somebody who understands us better than we understand ourselves. So empathy can be an incredibly positive thing. It can also be negative. Also, there's an interesting book about why women marry sociopaths. And basically, the book says because they have a lot of empathy and they understand why they are what they are, therefore they give them a pass. So again, empathy could be good, understanding could be bad. What's the next one?
Next one is the empathy of feeling.
Well, that sounds good. I feel your joy. I feel your pain. Sounds like a very positive thing. And it can be because it gives also a better sense of what's real for you. On the other hand, it can be very negative. I work for St. Jude's Hospital as a volunteer, a beautiful place. First thing I had to learn is don't cry in front of the kids. That is the worst thing you can do when you go to that hospital is cry in front of the kids. You make them feel like monsters. Well, sitting there and broadcasting, I feel your pain can do more harm than good. And also the other thing is burnout. A lot of healthcare people just burn out. They can't let it go. Dr. Patrick Frias is head of the Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. He said the first 2 months he was an intern, he went home and cried every night. He's around dying kids every day. He said after 2 months, he said, either don't do this job or let go. You got to let go of that stuff. He's got a family. He's got a wife. He's got kids. He can't bring that home. He's got to learn to let go of that empathy of feeling. I feel your pain. Well, you feel your pain enough. Guess what? All you feel is pain. Okay, what's the next one?
Next one is empathy of caring. You talk about a hedge fund guy.
I love this. The empathy of caring. Now that seems impossible to argue with. Impossible. Isn't caring good? Well, sometimes not. Well, obviously, if you care more, you're motivated, you want to help people, that's a good thing. And the story I love in the book, as you mentioned, is the hedge fund guy. The last group in the world you think would have problems with excessive caring is a guy that runs a hedge fund. Stereotypically, they care less other than making money, right? Well, I'm watching a guy who's worth $1 billion hedge fund guy interview a $3 billion guy. And the $1 billion guy says, well, why don't you have your own fund anymore? The old guy, the $3 billion guy says, well, what happened is I'm not as good as I was. He said, what do you mean you're not as good? You have more knowledge, experience, you're very smart. He said, I started caring. Now, he said, when I was young, I made billions of dollars, obviously. I also lost billions of dollars. I made 52, I lost 48. That's why I'm rich. And I didn't care. As I grew older, I thought, this is someone's health care, retirement funds, this is important. He said, I became more and more conservative and less effective. I cared too much. Now I only invest my own money, which he's worth $3 billion. Hey, makes $1 billion. Hey, he's worth $4 billion. Lose $1 billion. He's still worth $2 billion. It's not a big deal. Now, I'm sure as a personal trainer, you work with people's fitness, you have to see this. You start caring too much about them, you forget your mission. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I don't want to work out today. You say, oh, well, I understand. Pat, pat, pat. You forget your mission. And then finally, what's the last one?
Yeah, empathy of doing.
Yeah, and that sounds good. I not only know where you're coming from and feel your joy or pain, and I care about you, I'm going to do something about it. Can be very good. Can be very bad. One of the nicest women I ever met said, I'm a fixer. All I do is solve other people's problems. And if you're not careful, what do you create? Dependency People become like children. Why? You're taking action when you shouldn't. So I like that all four of those examples sound good on the surface. You dig beneath it, they can do more harm than good.
Looking more into this book, Marshall, one of my favorite parts about it is at the end of each chapter, there's applicable items to do, exercises to do. There's probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 in here that people can go do. I would love to hear from your point of view. What are two of your favorite exercises that you've put in the book that people can do that maybe you could explain right now for people
Well,
that
let's
don't
do
have the
one
book
right now.
yet?
Okay,
Yeah.
ready?
Yep.
Okay, first thing is take a deep breath. And just think every time I take a breath, it's a new me, new me. Everything that was done before this second of time was done by an infinite set of people, the previous yous. So think about all those previous yous, how hard they worked, all the good things they did, and how much they tried. If any group of people did that many nice things, what should you say to those people? Thank you. So do an exercise. Pick something that some of those previous yous did in the past that are really helping you today. Just write a thank you letter and say thank you to the me of the past. Now, the other one is write a letter to the future. I want you to think about the you 10 years from today. What are you doing today? Because you may be making a sacrifice today to help that person. But what do you want them to do with it? And I'll give you a negative and positive example. The negative example is one of the guys I coach. I spend a lot of time talking with ex-CEOs. What are you going to do now? Well, this guy was a CEO of a Fortune 20 size company. And he said, the last 40 years, I worked about 80 hours a week. I had one goal. I worked so hard so my children would never have to do this. Then he said it was the worst thing I could have ever done for myself, for my family, and for my children. They're spoiled. They're not grateful. They're bums. They're rich, but they're bums. They're achieving nothing. Well, what he did is he gave them a gift. He should have made an investment. What he should have said is, I have this money. And you know what? I am more than willing to invest it in you if, one, you're grateful, you appreciate it, and two, you do something meaningful with it. Because I don't want to give you money and turn you into some kind of trust fund bum. He made a gift. Back to the exercises, write a letter to the future you and say, look, I'm making some sacrifices today to help you. Here's what I really want you to do as a result of the investment I'm making in you.
I really like the other one that's called the hero exercise, and you have them write down who their heroes are, who they admire, and then 4 to 5 qualities that
Yeah.
they exemplify. They cross out their name, put your name, start living by the things that you admire most. Pretty powerful yet simple exercise.
Well, I love that exercise. That exercise changed my life. Literally 1/3 of my life today is a result of that exercise. I mean,
Wow.
not a small change. We're talking big change. I did the heroes exercise, and it was invented by Aisha Bursell, wonderful woman. She's one of our 100 coaches. And she asked me, who are my heroes? And then why? And I said, well, they're kind and generous people who are nice teachers. She said, well, you should be like them and be generous like them. And I decided to give everything away. I made a little video, put it on LinkedIn, and I thought 100 people would apply, and I'm going to adopt 15, teach them all, and know for free. And then they get old, they do the same thing. But I was wrong. 18,000 people applied, and now 400 people are in this group. And this group is a large part of my life now. And the rules are there's no money, no guilt, no expectations. You just give things to others for free. And then the only request is that they give something back to somebody else. Not that they help you or pay you, but they do something nice for another person. So that heroes exercise, who are your heroes? My heroes were great leaders, great thinkers, who were generous and kind. I tried to be like them. Now, one thing I am proud of, I became them. Peter Drucker, Francis Hesselbein, all these thought leader people, I'm one of them.
Hmm.
It's not an accident. I wanted to be one of them. I love them. I admired them. So I just want to be like them. And this whole project is not dedicated to me, it's dedicated to them. They help me. I'm pay it forward. I'm talking to you.
There's one more exercise that I think is really cool, and it's about being able to thank the people that have helped you get to where you are and realizing how many people actually help you get to the point where you're at today. If you remember that one, can you walk through that exercise?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I
Is
do too.
yeah, how do you get here? Well, none of us got here by accident. I certainly did. I met Dr. Paul Hersey. And Dr. Paul Hersey, I was smart enough to realize this guy's an incredible teacher. He was the highest paid leadership development consultant in the world at the time. I was a kid, just getting my PhD and just graduated. And I followed him around, and he let me come to one of his courses for free. And I said, "Wow, I was so generous." And I said, "I'll come anytime." Now I said, "I will carry the bags, serve the coffee, anything. All I want to do is sit in the back of the room." Not a problem. So I kept going to his courses to learn to do what he did. One day he got double booked. And he said, "Can you do what I do?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "I need help. Can you do it?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "I'll pay you $1,000 for a day." I was making 18,000. I was making $15,000 for a year. You know what I said? "Sign me up, coach." Look, at the time I was 28 years old. That's 46 years ago. My whole business experience is pumping gas in Valley Station, Kentucky. $1,000 for a day. I was poor. I was, oh, whoa. I fly to New York, did a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, and they were very angry when I showed up because I wasn't him. Yet I got ranked first place of all the speakers. They called him back and said, "Send Marshall again." That's how I got into business. Look, I delivered the goods. He opened the door. If he hadn't opened the door, I'd never had the chance. You got to have somebody open the door. And one of the great qualities of the mentors that I've had who've helped me, the people I thank, is they always said the same thing to me: "You can be more. You can be more. You can be more." And I largely became more. And I wasn't doing poorly when they told me that. It's not like I had a problem. I was happy being a college professor, making $15,000 a year. It seemed a fortune to me at the time. On the other hand, he said, "You can be more." Peter Drucker, "You can be more." A lot of examples in the book where people said to me, "You can be more." Well, that changed my life. So it's very good to go back and thank those people. So good exercise right now is everybody listening, think of somebody who gave you that message. You can be more. Somebody that helped you. Just write them a personal note or email. Just say thank you. Just say thank you because they deserve it. And by the way, how's it going to make them feel? Back to that heroes thing. Think of somebody who's alive, who's a hero to you. Write them a letter and say, "You're a hero to me. Thank you for being my hero. I could have picked anybody in the world to do this, but I picked you." How would that make you feel? Wonderful. Just wonderful. Doesn't cost you anything. And they deserve it.
Lovely. Marshall, I'd love to close down by having you tell my listeners about the 94-year-old self.
Yeah. And to me, I'm now going to give people the best advice they're ever going to get. Take a deep breath. Imagine you're 94 years old and you're just getting ready to die. You're on a deathbed. Here comes your last breath. Before you take that last breath, you're given a beautiful gift: the ability to go back in time and talk to the person that's listening to me right now. The ability to help this person be a better leader, a better professional, much more important, to have a better life. What advice would that wise old person who knows what mattered in life and what didn't, and what's important, and what wasn't important, have for you that's listening to me right now? And whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of performance appraisal, that is the only one that will ever matter. That old person says you did the right thing, you did the right thing, you don't have any regret. That old person says you made a mistake, you made a mistake. Well, some friends of mine interviewed old folks who were dying, got to ask this question: what advice would you have? 3 themes come up on the personal side. Theme number 1, be happy now. Not next week, not next month, not next year. The great Western myth, I'll be happy when I get the money, status, BMW, condominium. Be happy now. Now, some of the listeners might be thinking, "Oh, easy for you to say, old man. Oh, easy for you to say. Oh, you're rich." Yeah, I am. You're rich and you've sold 3 million books. Yeah, and you get to work with fancy people. That's me. Right. Easy for you to be happy. What about me? Well, let's imagine you're 40 years old. You have something I don't have, 34 years. You want the 3 million books? Send me the 34 years. You can have them. It's okay. Well, never look at somebody else and say, I wish I were them. You know, yeah. Don't get so busy chasing what you don't have. You can't see what you do have. Most of your listeners, I can tell you, they're high achieving people. They want to get better. They probably have friends, family. They're probably in decent health, youth. Don't get looking at what you don't have and you can't see all that stuff. Learning point number 2 is friends and family. Never get so busy climbing the ladder of success, you forget the people who love you. That is invariably a huge mistake that too many people make. And number 3, if you have a dream, go for it, because you don't go for it when you're 30, you may not when you're 80. And let's say you fail. It's okay. Do something else. Business advice isn't that much different. Number 1, life is short. Have fun. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, find something else to do. In the short term, make the best of where you are. Do your best to be happy, to make peace, to enjoy the process of life. And if the place you're working at makes you miserable, do your best to get the hell out of there. Get out. Life's too short. Number 2, and that's people. Do whatever you can do to help people. The main reason to help people is nothing with money or status or getting ahead. The main reason to help people is much deeper. The 95-year-old you will be proud of you because you did, and disappointed if you do not. And if you don't believe this is true, interview any CEO who has retired. I've interviewed very many and ask them a question. Please tell me, what are you proud of? None told me how big their office was. All they ever talked about is the people they helped. Final advice, go for it. World's changing, your life's changing. Do what you think is right. May not win, at least you tried. Old people, we seldom regret the risk we take and fail. We always regret the risk we fail to take. And finally, thank you for inviting me. My honor. What's my mission in life? As I've grown older, my mission has gotten simpler and simpler and simpler. Just try to help people have a little better life. So let's say a few people listening to us during this last hour maybe have a little better life based on something I've said. An incredibly good use of my hour. So thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Marshall, this was great. For listeners out there that want to get your book, specifically the new one, where can I point them? Where can they learn more from you?
Amazon.com. Yeah, it's a just go online, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's all there. It's easy to find.
Perfect.
And
Thank you for
also, you
taking
want to see the documentary, just go to Amazon.com, around Earned Life Movie. So my books are online and the movie's online, very easy. And then if you go to my website, I give away all my videos, or YouTube. Yeah, it's not hard to find my videos, right? How many were you able to find? A bunch, a couple
a
hundred,
lot.
300,
Absolutely.
hundreds of videos out there, and it's all free. So I give everything away. You copy, share, download, duplicate, use it any way you want. And by the way, if you like part but not another part, it's okay. Change it. I don't care. Change it. Put your name on it. I don't care. Do whatever you want to.
Marshall, thank you so much.